I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart.
Dude. The Fallout franchise has recently received a massive bump in popularity following the new show on Prime. Given that their most recent entry was a complete disaster, the series needed a revitalization. That disaster was called Fallout 76, if you don't remember. With all the hype from the show, people are wondering now, in 2024, is it worth giving Fallout 76 another chance? For full price? For 75% off? Even for $0 and 0 cents? Thankfully for me, and you, I have friends in high places, and I was actually given a free copy. No, I have Amazon Prime, and I guess you get it for free through there. So, I got it for free. If you don't have that or Xbox Game Pass though, you gotta pay. What? That said, I paid $0 for this game, but was it worth my time? And is it worth yours? That's what we're gonna find out. Disclaimer, this opinion is mine and my own. It is just my thoughts on the game, given the experience that I've had with it so far. It's not a fact by any means, and the goal of this is not to persuade or dissuade anyone from buying this game at all. Because I don't care. I have no stake in Bethesda or this game. Wrong. Second disclaimer, I'm not a Fallout expert by any means, and I don't know a whole lot about the lore or the world, so let me know in the comments if I say something wrong and if I just don't know better. But I'm going into this as a pretty casual fan. Didn't play New Vegas, but I played Fallout 3 and 4, and I enjoyed both of them quite a bit. So that's the only background I have. Now let's start on a lighter note. What does this game do well? First things first, I'll say it is a very exciting big map. Once I explored past that first area that you're given, I found that a lot of the areas in the game are actually exciting and interesting and unique, which is not necessarily something I'm used to in a Fallout game, given that the third one was just an entirely destroyed map. Which isn't horrible. I understand it was deliberate, but it's nice to get some variety. There are a lot of different environments and a lot of things I'm pretty sure that we've seen in DLCs that are brought to life in another unique way, and that can be explored with friends now. Another exciting feature, in my opinion, is that VATS happens in real time, because it's a multiplayer game and you can't have slow motion. Basically, the way it works is it shows a percentage of you hitting that limb or that enemy in general, and it'll basically just auto-lock to them. It works the same as VATS in any of the other games, it just doesn't slow down time. While it does make it a little bit harder to target limbs in the moment because you have to be kind of quick with it, I think it's kind of exciting to see what VATS actually would be like, because obviously it never really slowed down time. And although the slowing down time was really exciting the first few times you do it, and it was super cinematic, to me it just felt like it kind of got old and it felt like a kind of just a cop-out to actually doing the combat. Also, it was annoying to have to sit through the animation of missing like 3 times in a row. So that's exciting. Character customization is actually pretty well done. We're gonna look smacks. Positive canthal tilt, jawline, and the photo mode is, you know, always cool. I love photo mode. I don't know why I think that's a really fun feature. It's very similar to the one in Starfield. I actually really like Starfield, and I had a lot of fun with the photo mode in that, so that was cool to see that in it again, even though this one came out first. Another pro is they have this quality of life feature where when you kill an enemy and you haven't looted their body yet, it basically highlights it so that once you fight a bunch of enemies and you maybe only looted a couple, you can see all the enemies that are left with loot in their pockets that you might potentially want. It saves you a lot of trouble of going back and making sure which bodies you haven't looted yet. And the last pro is that playing with friends is, in my experience, it's very polished and it actually works really well. I feel like at one point or another, pretty much everyone who touches a Bethesda game wonders what it would be like to play it with a friend. And people have been asking for stuff like this for a while, and literally creating it with mods. And some of these mods, like Skyrim Together, work pretty well. But there was still a bunch of issues that ultimately made me stop playing it, because at the end of the day, these independent mod teams don't have the resources that a AAA developer does. Whereas Fallout 76 actually felt like a AAA multiplayer experience. There were very little issues with desyncing or people getting kicked from my team or kicked from my lobby or anything like that. It just actually felt good. Altogether, it was a really smooth experience, and is where the game is at its best. Well, obviously, because it was designed that way. And to add on the multiplayer experience being really exciting, they have these missions called expeditions, where you hop in a vertibird and travel to an area outside of the standard game map and complete a mostly linear side storyline with a ton of cool combat encounters with some enemies that are unique to that area, and some traditional Bethesda quest objectives. About halfway through recording for this video, I had no intention of returning to this game ever again. But once I'd done that expedition quest, it actually had me kind of craving to play this game when I was doing other things. The way you unlock them was a little bit tedious, but ultimately worth it, because it was a really fun and rewarding mechanic in the game that reminded me why I love Bethesda games so much. But yeah, my point is, multiplayer is fun and compensates pretty well for the areas where the game fails. Now, let's talk about where the game fails. First, I want to address some of the bugs. It's a Bethesda game, so obviously there's going to be some bugs. That was expected. But I want to point them out because they were annoying. Like one, I was in the character customizer and mouse wheel up was to push your chin out, but then when I would press mouse wheel down to return it, it wasn't registering. I tried it again with another mouse, and it actually wasn't even a hardware issue at all, so I ended up just having to plug in my controller to fix it with the D-pad, then switching back to M&K, which was slightly annoying. Another glitch I keep running into is my gun will just randomly shoot, and once again, it's not my mouse, but my gun will just randomly fire for no reason. And although this hasn't been super problematic, because it's usually with like a pistol or sometimes my shotgun or a rifle, it could potentially be a pretty annoying bug if I have a gun with hard to find ammo or something that could potentially kill me. Now, let's get into actual criticisms I have. First is going to be the shooting. Bethesda's never been known for their combat in any of their games, but I'd say the shooting in this game is particularly bad. It feels really clunky and boxy, and it feels like there's a learning curve to it that just isn't very exciting. It just feels difficult to use because it was designed poorly, and not necessarily because it's nuanced or challenging in a fun or interesting way. It just doesn't feel smooth or good. One specific issue I have with it is you can't cancel a reload or a rechamber animation. So basically, if you're shooting like a bolt action rifle, you have to watch as you rechamber the next round, even if you are trying to switch to another gun. And it's just kind of annoying you can't just rechamber it later. Or if you initiate a reload, you can't cancel it, so you're stuck doing the entire reload animation while you're just getting shot at, which is annoying. Personally, that just bothered me and got me killed several times. Another issue I take with Fallout 76, it's a little shallow, but the game, at least when you start it out, is ugly as shit. To me, it felt like a downgrade. In a multiplayer experience like this, obviously you're not going to have the, highest fidelity textures and all that, but it honestly just felt like a step backwards. I guess it was made in 2018, so it is technically last gen. It didn't feel like it holds up at all today. And I even reinstalled Fallout 4 on my PC just to get a direct comparison, and it definitely wasn't in my head. Like, Fallout 4 looks better from the NPCs to the environments, and that was kind of disappointing to me. I will say, though, for some reason, the game defaulted my display settings to poor or low or whatever the bottom one is, even though my hardware is actually really good. And Fallout 4 defaulted it to high, but even when I switched my settings to high on Fallout 76, it didn't look like much had really changed. The only thing that I could say that actually looks good in Fallout 76 is the lighting, because the God rays and the light rays are actually, like, they're actually really cool, and they look really good. But lighting is only really good when it has something good to bounce off of. So most of the time the visuals fall short. But I can totally look past that if the gameplay is fun. It was just something I noticed right out the gate because it's nice to have a graphically pleasing game. Now, this is a little bit of a deeper issue. The world just feels kind of lifeless. I did watch a couple videos about this game before diving in myself, and heard that the main storyline NPCs were not originally part of the game at all, and were added in as an afterthought. But even then, the voice acting and writing is so awful that I usually just ended up skipping the dialogues altogether. And I didn't even skip the dialogue in Oblivion. And Oblivion had like 10 total voice actors who honestly weren't the best in the world. Stop! And they still managed to deliver characters that felt closer to real people than Fallout 76. The NPCs in this game feel more like robots than the actual robots in the game. And this kind of ruined the immersion for me. But I can look past that, because ultimately, I didn't download the game because I wanted a super immersive story. I would just do a single player experience for that. Unfortunately, they didn't just miss with the NPCs involved with the story, there were issues with the non-story NPCs as well. The literal first enemy that I ran into was just standing frozen in place, and then when I shot and killed him, his player model was frozen in place, but he basically was like erased from the world. And that's just not really a great first impression. Now, it didn't happen all the time, but there were plenty of times where I was fighting an NPC and their animations would glitch out, or they would just have horrible AI in general, where they would basically either stand completely still and just freeze and not do anything, or run directly at you, even if they had a gun, and stand an inch from you and just shoot you. I also took a lot of issue with the fact that many of the NPCs would just kind of spam their attacks. I'd say the biggest example is when you have to do one of the first main storyline quests and you're fighting a bunch of these raiders and you break into their base, but most of the enemies have an unlimited supply of Molotov cocktails. And if you stand still for slightly too long, you're just going to get barraged with a storm of Molotov cocktails. And it's really annoying because they make you stumble, so then you're stuck in place and you can't do anything about it because you're stumbling and then you're on fire, and it just sucks. It's really annoying.
My brother in Christ, you are scaring the hoes.
All the enemies have like 1 or 2 different attacks or actions that they can even do, and it just once again contributes to that feeling of like, oh my god, these are animatronics. And look, I get it. It's an MMO, and I guess my issue isn't really that they have limited attacks, but it kind of just feels like they're all doing the same thing. Whether it's a raider with an axe or a feral ghoul with their hands, they all just kind of run at you and attack you the same exact way, and it doesn't really feel like there's any intelligence in the AI.
Hey, Vsauce, Michael here.
And this is more of a criticism towards Bethesda as a whole, and not necessarily Fallout 76 by itself. But this game was made in 2018, and it's still being supported, and the AI feels the exact same as Skyrim in 2011. Also, at one point, I ran into an enemy who was just unkillable. And I looked it up to make sure I wasn't just being an idiot, because that's actually pretty likely. But other people were having the same exact issue, and it turns out it was just Bethesda being Bethesda, and basically he was a protected NPC for a quest line, but since I didn't initiate the quest line, he was still technically a raider and got aggroed by my presence. So he's basically a protected quest NPC who can do damage to you, which is very stupid. Now, it was easy to just run away from him, and it's not like he did a whole lot of damage to me. But it ended up just being another obnoxious bug and another chip in the glossy coat of paint that a AAA title should have. To expand on that, here is an example of a protected quest NPC. In this quest, you have to find this bandit camp that's harassing this small town, and in order to find them, you have to get intel from this farmer who they have been harassing as well. After offering to help get rid of them, the guy was kind of a dick, and so I decided to be a little bit evil and shoot him in the face. Not only did it not hurt or kill him, but the bullet went through him altogether. It was as if there was no bullet at all. Same thing with melee attacks. Since I was even more pissed at this point, I ended up setting his house on fire and murdering his cows. And it just didn't need to go that far. And I blame Bethesda, but I understand. If I could kill this guy even when the quest ends for me, it would break the game for someone else who's trying to do the quest. But they could have at least added some kind of damage feedback, or the same thing they do with other Bethesda games where you just have somebody get knocked out. I think one of the most important components of any Fallout game is being able to make your own moral choices and becoming a savior of the wasteland or becoming part of it. I enjoyed Starfield, but its biggest flaw was that you basically needed permission from a quest or a faction to do everything, and it made it feel like the game was just on tracks. Whereas in Fallout 3, you could just go around shooting people dead in the middle of the street randomly, and you would get treated like a piece of shit for it. Because you were being a piece of shit. In Fallout 76, you follow instructions and paint by numbers. Once again, the immersion is shattered. The last thing that I want to bring up for negatives is that I think the perk system was a little overcomplicated and honestly just forced, because they really just wanted to be a live service game, and so they created this card pack system so that they could introduce new perks later and create a more random experience. But ultimately, to me, this was kind of annoying because I feel like there should be some skills that are earned through cards, but other skills that are integral to the gameplay loop, like, you know, lock-picking skills or hacking terminal skills, or even like modifying your weapons. I think those things should be confined to just a regular traditional skill tree, whereas some of the more eccentric skills like, you know, Mysterious Stranger or things that don't necessarily impact the game one way or another, those things should be something you can earn at random. So I thought that was kind of a miss, because it was just annoying that I couldn't unlock anything no matter how many points I put into perception. And with that live service kind of idea, they also were a little microtransaction happy, especially with the building and crafting. There were a lot of items that you just couldn't build unless you paid. And it was super annoying because some of the items behind paywalls were like actually helpful to your gameplay and were just basic quality of life things that kind of gave me the same icky taste in my mouth that the Dragon's Dogma 2 pay for fast travel mechanic did. One thing I will say in defense of this though is that they made it very easy to just press one button and it would hide everything that you can't build or craft, so that way you're not just always cluttered with a bunch of things behind a paywall. So I will admit that was really cool, but just the vast amount of items that were behind a paywall was kind of annoying. So for my final verdict, this game was an ambitious step in the right direction, and I hope to see a more successful execution of the Bethesda formula with multiplayer. And with all the flaws that this game had, I still have to admit that the multiplayer was actually a lot of fun. So that said, would I play this game even for $0? Definitely not. But is this game worth playing with friends? Absolutely. I actually had a ton of fun once I actually started playing with my friends, once we started doing more events, exploring the higher level areas of the map, and of course doing the expedition missions. Because that classic Bethesda formula is really fun with someone else to experience it with. And it was almost fun enough to make me look past all of the complaints that I had. Now, I can't say for how long this would be fun, but I have to admit that playing with friends absolutely made this game so much more enjoyable. So, if you can look past everything I pointed out and want a decent Fallout experience with some of your friends, this is perfect for you. Personally, I feel like there are better options to play with your friends, but I also would definitely be down to play it again if one of my friends invited me. But if you're just looking for something to fill the void in your heart because they decided to make Starfield instead of Fallout 5, then this is probably not the answer. Don't just take my word for it though. There are plenty of people reviewing this game in its current state since the show dropped. And some of them, like BBKDRAGON, had much nicer things to say about it. So if you want to hear a more positive review of the game, I would definitely go check out his video that's linked in the description. Another one that's more in line with my opinion, but more informative, and he seems like a bigger Fallout fan in general, is from Bayne from Push Square. That video is also linked in the description. But yeah, the point of this video was to provide as much information as possible in this game from the experience that I had with it, and hopefully either prevent you from wasting your money, or more importantly, your time, or to help you convince your friends to get it, so you don't end up having to play it alone.
I got it.
No, I got the collar over there. I got it. Oh, here, I freed the prisoners. I unlocked it.
I freed him.
If this video helped you in any way at all, or it was just enjoyable to watch, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And also, go and check out my Twitch with the link in the description, and come tune in sometime. But that's going to do it for this video. Thanks again for sticking around, and I will see you next time.